A new bombshell Senate report showing the Trump administration is facing an alarming and unprecedented cascade of media leaks that pose a potential danger to national security. The new report revealing that the Trump administration is hit with at least one leak a day. Here now to discuss this avalanche of media leaks, London Center for Policy Research President Herb London. Herb, how do you stop this? I mean, this is President Trump said when he arrived he wanted to put an end to it.
Yeah, what you've obviously got to do is bring criminal charges against people who are engaged in this kind of leaking. And you've got to be very vigilant in doing so. But the important thing to understand is that this is a form of internal jihad. What you have is a lot of holdovers who are very much opposed to Trump. And when you think about someone like Sarsour saying we're engaged in jihad against the Trump administration, this is internal jihad. It's working within the government to destroy that government. It's a fascinating development and a very, very dangerous one. It strikes me that if you're going to have this kind of leakage, there is no way in which you can engage in secret national security questions. Well, there aren't too many options. I mean, after all, the fourth estate does deserve a certain kind of independence. But at the same time, you have to recognize the fact that you must maintain national security questions and a certain degree of secrecy around them. If we're going to violate all of the codes in the United States and give them to our enemies, what we have is the lack of any national security in America. This becomes a thoroughly chaotic situation. This is absolutely intolerable.
Muslim activist Linda Sarsour calling for a resistance movement against President Trump and his administration, and she is suggesting to the Muslim community that it is a form of jihad. Joining me now again, London Center for Policy Research President Herb London. Herb, what do you think?
Well, she's engaged in destroying apostates, people who are opposed to Islam. And there is no doubt that we cannot tolerate a situation where this form of intolerance exists. You know, it was George Santayana who once made the interesting comment, the first and overarching responsibility for a tolerant man is to be intolerant of intolerance. She is intolerant. She is absolutely intolerant. She has no understanding of how our system works. And as a consequence, she's making all of these claims. But the left in America is now in a relentless campaign to delegitimize the Trump administration. That's their goal. And she is obviously in the forefront of this position. And on top of it, which is, I think, quite interesting, she is also someone who is anti-Zionist, anti-Israel, and even anti-Semitic. And here's the left that used to be so pro-Zionist and so pro-Jew now having a very different sensibility. It demonstrates a rather significant shift in the American political atmosphere.
Herb, I mean, a lot of people try and slice and dice the idea that the president and so many others that are against this kind of violence aren't anti-Muslim. They're against, violent extremism, and that, people within the Muslim community need to recognize this violent extreme within their community and do something about it. How do you do that, though?
Well, you do it with leadership within the Muslim community. I mean, after all, President Sisi of Egypt did go to Al-Azhar, and he did say at Al-Azhar, there's a violence within our religion. And he ended a rather remarkable speech by saying, we need a revolution from within. Now, when you have comments of that kind, that should have received worldwide attention. If I were president of the United States at that time, I would have had Sisi in the United States. I would have had him make the same speech at American universities. I would have done the same thing with King of Bahrain, who made a very similar speech. So there are those in the Muslim community who understand that this kind of modification is necessary.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there are some who do not.